Welcome to Unboxed. I'm your host, Connie Nam, the founder of Astrid&Miyu. In these conversations, I speak to the founders of some of the most innovative, bold, and exciting businesses to discover the person behind the brand and what it took for them to build their empires. My guest today is David Abrahamovitch, founder and CEO of cult coffee brand Grind. A struggle a lot of founders face is trying to be the manager everyone wants you to be. But the evolution of David's business and life is a refreshing view on how adaptable entrepreneurs need to be.
We talk about let's do things that Nespresso can't do. I think culture takes, a decade to build and you can destroy it in 10 minutes. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to create an environment where you've got the resources and the people and the understanding and you figure out what to go and do next.
Hi, David.
Hello.
Welcome to my studio. Welcome to our podcast.
It's lovely. Thank you for having me.
So nice to have you again. I had you on in 2020. You talked a lot about your, personal life and background. So we'll probably keep that very short and really talk about your new developments in the business because there's been huge changes. So aside from being the founder of Grind, who is David as a person?
It's nice to be doing it face to face this time as well, isn't it? Not through Zoom. So my name's David. I'm 38 now, which is frightening. Live in East London, have two small babies, 1 and 3. As you can imagine, my life is basically running the business and looking after the babies. But outside of that, I like to try and have as much fun and travel and go on holiday as much as possible, basically ski as much as possible. And that's about it, to be honest.
No, that sounds great.
Yeah, there's not that much time for anything else at this point. I'm hoping like in another 10 years, we might get some time back for some other things.
Yeah, and you've achieved so much since the last time I met you. And Grind has really taken a different stride, hasn't it, as a business? You've launched the machines, capsules, you're in all of the Soho houses around the globe. And you've also acquired or made an M&A acquisition. So tell me all about it.
Oh my God, so much has happened. I was catching up with one of my investors this morning who I haven't spoken to for 6 weeks. And it's like an hour of just updates in 6 weeks. But I think people sometimes don't realize how quickly scale-ups move and how quickly things can change. But no, a huge amount has happened since 2020. So I think when we last spoke, we were 9 months post-lockdown or something, and our direct-to-consumer business where we sell coffee pods to people through our website had really taken off. We'd done a big funding round. I think at that time, we must have just recently closed a £22 million funding round. And the business has really changed a lot since then. So, going into the pandemic, we were 99% of our revenue was through our high street stores, which obviously were then closed down. Now, the high street represents about a third of our business. So another third is from our website and our direct-to-consumer business, which is equal in size now to our high street business, which is crazy from a standing start in 2020. And then kind of even more crazy is that our grocery and wholesale business from a standing start of less than a year is now equal again in size to those other two parts of the business. So I guess we've really changed from like a high street focused chain to a multi-channel coffee business now.
So when you raised the 22 million, was that the strategy you set out to the investors, or did that pivot constantly?
I think, look, whenever you do a fundraise, it's a moment in time and you agree a plan, and to some extent you're always held to that plan, and certainly you look back and compare I'm sure you know what it's like. You look back and you compare yourself to that plan. But I think everyone understands that the plan changes and you reforecast quarterly at least, and new opportunities are presenting themselves all the time, and some stuff doesn't work out. So look, I think the strategy is broadly the same, but obviously things have worked really well and things have worked less well, and that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about the acquisition? Tell me about the acquisition, the rationale, and how you're integrating.
So really exciting to do our first proper piece of kind of M&A, if you like. So we acquired a company called Bottleshot, which is a canned coffee company, and that was led by Annie, Charlotte, and Leo. And Annie and Leo subsequently joined the team. So kind of all-female founder team, which is really nice. They'd been going for 2 or 3 years, and they'd really got underneath the skin of how do you make super high quality canned coffee, which is surprisingly hard. Like, it's not just a case of, you put some coffee and some milk in a can and off you go. It's really quite a technical process. And they'd invested in a manufacturing facility and helped that manufacturing facility to make changes and to scale up to deliver it. But the thing that they didn't really have was a brand. And they'd struggled to get traction with the grocery chains because they would go and see Sainsbury's or whoever, and everyone would do the taste test, and we're like, oh, this tastes so much better than the stuff from the big chains. We love it, but when you go to grocery, your mind is largely already made up before you walk through the door about the kind of brands you're going to buy. So they'd struggled a little bit with that, and so I'd met Annie several years before, and she kind of just called me out of the blue and said, can we meet up? I said, fine, yeah. When I met up for a coffee or something, and she basically pitched me, look, we've got this manufacturing, we've got this super high quality product, but we don't really have a brand. You've got an amazing brand, but you're not really taking canned coffee very seriously. You're not really doing it at big scale, and I don't understand why you're not. And also,
have you been doing it at all?
Yeah, so we had been doing it, but it was, the cans were costing us a lot to manufacture. We were doing it in small scale, only really for us and for Soho House. And we hadn't really understood, to be honest, we hadn't understood the size of the opportunity in grocery and how big it was. Like, so for example, in grocery, the canned ready-to-drink coffee segment is more than twice the size of the coffee pod segment. So it's huge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's huge. So it's a massive opportunity. And she basically pitched me, and like, to be honest, exactly what she pitched ended up happening pretty much. Like, obviously we had to iron out the details, but credit to her for finding a way.
Cookie.
Yeah, super smart. And she now runs our entire grocery and B2B kind of division. Wow. And she's doing an amazing job.
Yeah, and you've got
building a team.
You've got a division head who's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and
plus.
Yeah, and she's amazing. And as part of that, they'd signed a deal for them and now us to become a supplier to M&S as well for their canned coffee. So that's a huge revenue driver and a huge volume driver, which allows us to be producing cans at a very large volume. So that contract with M&S was also kind of a part of the deal.
Yeah, that's so interesting because we're probably at similar size in terms of revenue and like number of people and things. And I wouldn't necessarily have thought about M&A as a small business, but you've thought really big, thinking like, I'm going to acquire this company. Has M&A like always been a part of your strategy, or was it quite like opportunistic?
It's completely opportunistic. It was as a result of Annie getting in touch, and then going through the process of opening our eyes to the size of the opportunity. And it was perfect timing because we'd just taken the decision, as like loads of direct consumer brands now are going into retail, right? If you look in the US, they're all trying to get into Walmart. If you look here, they're all trying to get into whatever is the relevant retail channel. And we'd kind of recognized that. And so we launched in Waitrose recently, and we're launching into other grocers with our own branded grind products. And so really she came along with the Bottleshot thing at the perfect time because it was just as we were looking for someone to run our grocery division. And it's like, well, here's a person that's clearly can
perfect.
do a great job of that, knows everything, and also we can do this as part of an acquisition. So no, but look, we're actually like we're looking at a couple of other things now, and actually it seems that there's quite a lot of appetite for M&A. I think as funding sources have dried up and as the economy's got more difficult and interest rates have risen, I think people are finding it harder to raise money and keep going when they're kind of very early stage. And so I think naturally they're kind of getting in touch with other people who are potentially buying businesses. So look, I think you have to be super careful with M&A. You have to make sure that values are really aligned, outlooks are really aligned. But it can, so far we've launched our own grind canned products using all of the knowledge and manufacturing built up by them. It's been really, really successful. There's been an amazing reception to the cans. We're selling way more than we thought we would. They're going to be coming online in grocery channels kind of over the next 6 to 12 months. So it's been, so far, touch wood, it's been really, really successful. Thank you.
Like M&A integration is notorious for being really hard to implement for big companies, but I wonder what it is like for like small and medium businesses like us.
Yeah, look, I think the advantage is that, big companies come with hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of employees. We only took 2 employees over. So it was a very small from that perspective, but they brought with them, a big supply contract in terms of the M&S piece, and also just a huge amount of of expertise and entrepreneurialism that is now, they're now able to do a great job for us, but with the resources and the brand of a bigger and better known business, rather than having to try and do everything themselves as they were previously.
So you'd say it's more about the people that you're bringing on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about
sense.
the people. And credit to Annie, she got all of her shareholders all of their money back, and a bit more. And it's a good deal for her personally, and she now gets to grow a division with inside Grind, which I think she's really enjoying. So no, it's been really good so far. But I would remain cautious about future ones, and I think the more people, the bigger the challenge. Just integrating culture. I think
what are some of the key considerations you have on the back of your mind?
I think that culture piece, like the culture at Grind is so amazing, and I don't know entirely how we created it, but I think culture takes a decade to build, and you can destroy it in 10 minutes with one wrong action, right? Like it's much faster to destroy it than create it. So
one wrong hire, I could just destroy it.
Exactly right. A few wrong decisions, So I would always kind of start there and just go, is this going to be additive to our culture and to our brand? And if it is, great. But equally, I think it's important that it's never just me saying we're doing this. Like the entire senior team were bought into the idea and excited about the acquisition.
Yeah, that's
and
so
therefore,
interesting.
Everyone was incentivized. Well, everyone wanted to make it work. They weren't necessarily incentivized to make it work, but everyone was excited about it, and everyone wanted to make it work. Whereas I think if it's being forced upon the team, it's never going to happen, right? It's never going to work, right? It's never going to be successful.
Absolutely. So interesting, because last episode I was talking to Nicola, founder of Neom, and she said culture is the most important thing, and her biggest mistakes were hiring the wrong people. Have you that written down somewhere? What is the culture?
No, we haven't actually, and we've tried a couple of times, and we've had, I'm sure as you have done, every now and again you find yourself, someone's running some exercise to try and define our values and all of these. And look, we've done it, and we've got the employee handbooks and we've got various things, but I think it's very hard to try and write it down. I think you have to live it, really. And
so how do you vet the people?
Yeah, it's so hard, and it always has to change as well, right? And so we recently, our head of people, who's amazing, has been with us forever. She's gone on maternity leave, and so we've had to hire a replacement. And during the interview process for the maternity cover, it became really clear to me how I was, we got it down to two people, and I was basically choosing between two different people who were just completely different skill sets. And I think one of them, 3 years ago, I definitely would have hired, because they were much more of a kind of hospitality, kind of worked their way from the bottom up to the top, that kind of hustler, grafter, worked their way up from a very low level job to a high level job in a big business previously. Whereas the alternative candidate was someone who was kind of much more measured, a little bit more corporate, had been part of bigger businesses. And actually, 3 years ago, I would have said, no, this person's too corporate and not been in the right background. We need to go with the kind of the hustler. But actually, we went with the alternative candidate in the end, because I think you have to recognize that the business is changing, the business is bigger, the headcount is bigger, things are moving on. And actually, I think it's very dangerous to continue to hire people like yourself or people like the existing culture, because then you just end up with all of the same people.
Yeah.
And actually, what we've seen with Annie and Leo coming in is a slightly different culture that they did bring. And although they have fit in really nicely, they've also challenged us on a lot of things, and they work differently in some ways. And so I think the culture has to evolve. And you have to drive it forwards. It can't always remain the same.
I guess it depends on the definition of culture, because I beg to differ.
Okay.
Because I think you should bring on people with different skill sets, but
absolutely.
Still with the same culture. But I think we're talking about the same thing probably. I'm talking about a culture that doesn't change, like values. You're talking about like skill sets probably.
Yeah, I guess I'm talking about working culture and working practices as opposed to culture. Yeah, completely. Like the same values remain from day one. It's the kind of people we want, the kind of attitude we want. I've always treated everyone like a grown-up, as much as possible. Like, you're a grown-up. I'm not going to, you don't ask permission to go to the dentist. Like, we're not a school. Act like a grown up. Get the things done that you need to get done in your job. And it's about what people do when no one's looking, not when everyone's looking.
And you still want the big company people to come and be that, right? Because you sometimes find big company people come in and they're like waiting for directions.
Yeah, exactly. Waiting to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not here to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
I'm here to create an environment where you've got the resources and the people and the understanding, and you figure out what to go and do next. Because if I knew what to do, I would do your job myself. Okay, I can't do everyone's job myself, but like, I'm looking for you to tell me what to do next, not the other way around. Like, I'm here to listen to you, make sure there are no roadblocks in your way, give you guidance on, are we going down this path or that path? But ultimately, like, you as the senior leader have to walk that path, not follow me down that path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree. You need to hire people with different skill sets, someone who can bring in different things. Because
it's hard, right?
Yeah, it's really hard because like I'm finding like as a scale up, I think 2-3 years ago, I really struggled because, we had all these amazing people who are so entrepreneurial, but we couldn't get that structure in place. And I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So I had to hire people who came from bigger company backgrounds, but, not too corporate. So someone who can integrate really well, but who can also equally do that.
Yeah. But sometimes you kind of want to be 5 or 10% more corporate, right? Like, you need that.
Yeah. You need the structure.
Yeah, that's growing up. That's putting structures in place. And that's like, we've got too much going on now to just wing it all the time like we used to. Like, I do everything
then
at the
everyone
last
gets
minute.
confused.
And everyone gets stressed, right?
Yeah.
Whereas actually, it's so interesting because I think sometimes as the CEO, especially when you're the founder and you've seen it from the beginning, you're almost scared to put structure in place because you think it's gonna. Well, I am anyway. I don't know. You tell me.
I am too because I'm always like I always prided ourselves in being like scrappy, nimble, adaptable, and we don't want to lose that essence, right?
Exactly. And you worry that like if there's too much structure in place, the people who are great are going to get annoyed because but actually, whenever I talk to people, they say the opposite. They're happy to have a bit more structure, and actually they want more direction and more deadlines and more understanding of
then
priorities.
they can manage their life
because they can manage their life, and they can also feel less stressed, which is just so important to people.
I completely agree because when it's all about adaptability, everything's at the whim of, I guess, us.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I'm like, you imagine that giving them a list and putting it in the right order for them and saying, do this, then this, and then this, and these are the priorities. And you imagine that can feel to me like I'm micromanaging. But actually, I think when done in the right way, it's just providing guidance and providing clarity. And people crave clarity. Like, I think typically when you ask employees what they don't like about any business, it's like they don't know where they're supposed to be going or what they're supposed to be doing. They don't know clearly who they report to or why, and they don't really know how they're being judged. In terms of what their bonus incentives are, or what does it good even look like. And I think if you can try,
it's confusing. They want to know where they're heading.
They just want to know where they're at, right? Like
what they're working on.
Yeah, exactly. But it's hard. It's hard to provide that.
I mean, it's also not our skill set, right? Because we're entrepreneurs, we're not managers.
Yeah, and I guess this is why you look at Silicon Valley tech businesses and they all end up being run by CEOs who are very, very different to the founders, right? So I guess at some point it comes time to hand the mantle over to a professional CEO.
Yeah. Would you ever do that? Are you ready for that moment?
Definitely not now because we're still we're still being scrappy and entrepreneurial and we're still building and hustling. But look, I'm sure at some point that may make sense, right? Like, none of us can do this forever.
Yeah. Growing a business from a startup to a scale up comes with many challenges. One way to solve this is to introduce effective systems at the right time. Payhawk, a corporate card and expenses management solution for scale-ups, have literally transformed many lives at Astrid&Miyu since implementing earlier this year. To simplify, Payhawk combines company cards, reimbursable expenses, accounts payable, and seamless accounting software integrations into a single product that can be used globally. In this episode, David and I are discussing the evolving org chart and the structures needed as the businesses scale. Whilst building out your team, the last thing you want to worry about is who is spending on what and keeping a tab on your cash flow. This is where Payhawk comes in. The systems has customizable expenses approval flows, and more importantly, everything is so intuitive and can be done through an app, so you don't need to be a finance whiz to use this. tell me about how your organizational structure evolved over time since, like, I guess pre-COVID. I guess COVID always becomes like a definition of an era. So like during COVID and also post-COVID, especially because your business has like evolved a lot.
Yeah, I think kind of COVID is such a milestone for everyone, but even more for us, just because the business changed so much, as we talked about last time and a little bit earlier. It changed so much during that period. But I guess we were a much simpler business before. We basically had a small team at the top of the business, and someone who ran the restaurant business and the high street business, and that was all we focused on. And yeah, sure, we were doing other things, and we were doing a bit of wholesale and a bit of retail, but really it was all about, okay, what was the revenue from all of the high street stores this week? What was the margins? What was the labor? Where's the next store? Where's the next fundraise? And what's the other next things we're doing to keep positioning ourselves as an amazing brand? Whereas now we're in, we're on the high street, we're at home, we're workplace, we've got manufacturing division, we have a 20,000 square foot roastery with 30 people there all day making stuff. We supply people all over the world. We maintain all of the coffee machines ourselves. We have a 3 or 4 person maintenance team maintaining our equipment and so our house equipment across the UK. There's so many, we have this whole grocery thing now, like there's so many different parts of it. So as that evolves, you have to, find a way to evolve the structure. And the way that I've done that is to basically, have a senior leadership team where someone is in charge of each of those verticals, and then to have kind of pools of resource that they can pull in. So, a finance team that clearly works across all parts of it. The roastery itself, which is, involved in supplying all parts of it in some way or another, because they manufacture all of the different products for all of the different channels. And then a brand team. So, our brand team used to be wound up just in the restaurant piece, and then it was wound up in the website, but we've pulled that out now. And again, that's just, anything you need, from a menu to a TV ad to a tube poster to creatives to boxes to packaging. So much, as there's so much of that stuff, right? Boxes, packaging, that whole thing is just a resource pool that the rest of the business can build on. And then, basically, myself, our CFO and our CMO, so Chief Finance Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, we kind of sit above all of those people running their own divisions. And that's how we've got it at the moment. I don't know if that's right or wrong.
It sounds sensible. How many people do you have in the head office, roughly?
50?
50?
Yeah, something like that. Probably 30 in the head office and 25 or so in the roastery.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe slightly more actually.
What was your biggest lesson throughout this whole journey? Because I would imagine, like, being from a startup to now like a scale up with like an acquisition.
Yeah.
There must have been a lot of lessons learned and mistakes.
God, so many lessons, so many mistakes. I think it was really hard the pandemic was hard in terms of what it did to online sales, and like the huge peaks and the troughs and the lockdowns and the opening ups and the closing again. And, there was a period where everyone thought this, we'd fast forwarded 10 years in e-commerce, right? That was the chat, and you saw the lines in the Sunday Times or wherever, right? Everyone was printing the same things, like 5 years of e-commerce growth in 1 year. And actually that's basically all unwound since then, right? Like it's all gone back to how it was. So I think lots of people, us included, got carried away with, okay, we've grown so much on direct to consumer, the growth is going to keep going like this forever. So that means over-ordering stock and, maybe over-resourcing and stuff like that. And actually, we've been lucky because, we've never trimmed back on headcount. We haven't needed to because we didn't go too hard on that. And we've managed all the areas where we did over-order stock. That's kind of evened itself out by now, anyway. But like I think trying to judge that, particularly when you then raise lots of money on high hopes of really fast growth, which we have delivered growth, but we haven't delivered it as fast and as big as maybe we thought we would when we last spoke, December 21. And so just managing everyone's expectations about all of this. And just managing the unknown, right? Like none of us knew what 2023 looked like in 2021 is the reality. Like, were we going to be, and again, work from home. So, work from home has a huge impact on our high street business, and the makeup of the week has completely changed. So Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays, we're trading better than ever. Mondays and Fridays, we're down compared to 2019. And Thursdays is absolutely the new Friday as far as the city is concerned. So again, just the whole business adapting in a I guess if you zoom out, it's just been a really non-steady state, right? And I look back now and I think...
Yeah, even now. There's so many variables going on.
So many variables. Like I kind of look back, I'm sure you do as well, and you think 2015 to 2019, with hindsight, was so stable. Like, okay, Brexit aside, that was a shock and that created problems. But apart from that one variable, everything was kind of broadly the same. Now you've got, cost of living crisis, interest rates, energy, utilities, business rates, costs just getting hammered everywhere. Work from home, no work from home, all of that stuff. So I think, it's hard. You're always trying to make decisions 6 months, 12 months in advance. And you're basically trying to predict the future all the time, right? I mean, every time you do a forecasting exercise, you're trying to predict the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
and aside from the economic environment, there's all of these like media landscape changing, right? Like Instagram and then TikTok and all of these things. Speaking of, like, you're so good at these PR stunts. I know there was this George Clooney stunt. I don't know whether we're like allowed to talk about this, but can you like tell me briefly about your marketing strategy and how do you come up with these ideas?
You're right, because Instagram and the effectiveness of Instagram ads in the context of obviously the changes in the algorithm between Apple and Facebook, that's become difficult. And so we've therefore had to go much more, and actually I'm glad we did, into tube ads and posters. And we recently did our first TV ad as well, which ran in June and is running in September and October. So we've had to learn fast about these kind of more traditional forms of advertising and marketing. And then the stunts are just things that we try and challenge ourselves to do one a month if we can. And it's just silly ideas, really. Like there's no like...
I really love the small billboard.
Yeah, the small billboard one was cool, right? And it's just, you just chuck these ideas out there and you try them. And some of them really work and some of them get absolutely no traction at all. But it's all about just trying to do things, we talk about, let's do things that Nespresso can't do. Because, Nespresso is the dominant force in coffee pods. They sell billions of dollars worth of these capsules a year. We're selling, a tiny fraction of that, but we want to grow into their territory, right? So let's do things that they can't do. Let's poke at them a little bit. Let's tease them a little bit, and let's have some fun with it, right? And I think it's interesting because the ones that people recite back to you always tend to be the fun ones. Yeah. And the funny ones or the interesting ones. They're the ones that get quoted back to you. So it's really just comes down to just having a brand team that's got some slightly quirky people in it. Yeah. And, there's some really quirky people in our brand team and they're amazing. And they just come up with these random ideas that I could never have come up with. And normally it's me reining them back. Yeah. Going, no, we can't do that. We're going to get sued if we do that.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite campaign?
The thing that has probably been the most fun has actually been the tube car panels, which I realize is not maybe as like interesting as, we put a George Clooney lookalike into our store at St Pancras. But actually the tube car panels, they just reach so many people. They're so effective.
How did you measure it?
And so you, basically you look at, so when anyone purchases on our website, there's a survey afterwards, how did you hear about us? And it presents, 10 options or something in a randomized order. It's really important for it to be randomized. So people click tube ad, or I went to one of your stores, or I visited one of your trucks or wherever. Yeah. And you just measure the movements in that, right? So same for TV, same for everything else. Yeah. And then you can also measure the uplift in sales in London versus the rest of the country, because obviously the tube is only in London. So
So you don't put a discount code?
No, we have tried that before, and actually I think we're doing that again now. But I think you need to not think of, we don't try and think of out-of-home advertising as direct response. It's not an ad that you can click on and click through and purchase. It's about uplift for the brand. It's about making the brand more recognizable, and therefore making your digital ads more effective. Yeah.
Because if you think about like our behavior as a consumer, you don't just look at a billboard and just click and buy immediately, right?
Exactly. But next time you see a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad, or next time you see it in a supermarket, you might be more inclined to go with that brand because you feel like you've learned a little bit about it and you trust it because you've seen it outside. And we still, we still believe that if we've seen something on TV or we've seen something on billboards, it must be more credible and more trustworthy than a brand that we haven't, which makes sense because, anyone can create a brand in their living room now, right? In 2 seconds with an Instagram account. So actually seeing it gives credibility, which helps with the conversion progress. But the tube ads are good because you get, you get to have a little bit of fun. We've had some really funny ones and some really cheeky and interesting ones. And they're the things that get recited back to me all the time. And they're the things that people say, oh, grind. Oh, yeah, I see you on the tube all the time.
And were they the ones that gave more uplift versus like the more traditional ones?
Yeah, and actually, like, as we've played with it, if you try lifestyle images on there and stuff like that, nothing is effective as just a pink panel with some black text on it and a grind tin and good text. That is just the most effective, like clean communication. And you look at ads that are trying to do so many things. You just need a punchline, right? Because people are doing a lot with their lives. Like, they're busy. They're not getting on the tube to check out the advertising, right? So you've got a split second to kind of make that impact.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Have you done much out of home or?
Yeah, so we're doing fly postering right now, and they're quite effective in driving traffic. So we're trying to drive traffic into our stores. So we're doing it around the store openings, regionally and things. And we measure uplift of like 2 weeks prior versus like 2 weeks after. Yeah. And it's been really effective. Yeah.
It's a leap of faith though, right? All of this stuff, it's just a leap of faith. And it took us a while to get comfortable with, instead of spending £50,000 on Facebook ads, let's put that £50,000 or £100,000 into posters or tube ads because it's big amounts of money and you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. But I think as you do it more, you get more comfortable, right? And there's a reason that Apple, the world's most valuable company, still covers every city in the world in billboards, right? Because you have to remain top of mind and you have to keep reinforcing your position.
Yeah, and, although I want to make a side note because a lot of our listeners are early stage founders. Yeah. I feel like for us, it might work really well because we have a level of awareness. But if you're just starting out, I'm not sure how effective these billboards and I don't know, fly postering would be.
No, completely agree. Yeah. And that's not the obvious place to put. If you're thinking about where to put your next £1,000, not your next £50,000, then there's no way you should be putting it into billboards, right? Like, you should be putting that into effectively routes for free customer acquisition or into your product or into gifting your product and things like that.
What would you do if you had £1,000 and
sector?
you were a very early stage?
Which
sector?
Selling?
Okay, jewelry. Give you a challenge.
I mean, it has to be gifting it to the right people, right? Like, it just has to be. Yeah. Right? So how much of cost price stock does that buy me? Okay, well, the things I'm giving cost me £50 to manufacture. Yeah. So I've got 20 goes at giving it to people who are going to promote it for me. Yeah. Choose the right 20 people. And then as best you can, make sure that those 20 people are going to do something with it. Yeah. But I think it's really important never to, when we gift stuff, we don't ask for anything in return. We don't contact you and say, oh, we'll gift you an espresso pod machine if you agree to post it, because I just find that very kind of transactional. It leaves a bad taste. And people try and do it to me all the time as well. And I'm just like,
and you don't know what that person's going to do behind the scenes, right? If you didn't ask, they'll probably tell their friends. Who will also buy it. Whereas like if you tell them to do something, they might be like, oh, like I don't want to do that.
Yeah, it just becomes very transactional. And a gift is supposed to be the opposite of a transaction, right? It's supposed to be a gift.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Building relationship with your customers.
I'm like, do you know what? This person looks great. They make great content. Yeah. Just send them a machine. I'm sure they'll post about it if they like it. And if they don't post about it, they'll show people it in their kitchen. And, that revenue will come back to us eventually one way or another. Just be as selective as possible with the 20 theoretical people that I can give my jewelry to.
I love that. I love how you wouldn't ask them to post about it. And
no, we've never done that.
It becomes more of a relationship.
Yeah, look, obviously, if you're paying an influencer an actual cash fee to do something, then fine. You probably
it's not a cash gift.
Yeah, there need to be an agreement about, okay, well, what are both sides going to do? But if you're just gifting product, I mean, my wife is a makeup artist, and she does makeup for amazing people, and my hallway is like the Royal Mail sorting office sometimes. Like, it's relentless. I feel like I need a cardboard recycling facility in my back garden.
What does she do with all the gifting? I guess like for someone who's trying to give to someone like your wife, like how do you stand out from the crowd?
If she posted a picture of everything she received, she would do nothing else except take pictures of stuff and post it, because it's time consuming, right? Even like to take a nice picture of some boxes of makeup takes some time. And, and B, she would bore everyone to death with the amount of stuff that she receives and the amount of posts. So, I look at them coming through and I can immediately tell which ones are going to be interesting to her. And I think it's the ones that are generous.
Yeah.
So when she feels like the brand has sent her a lot of money's worth of product, I think she's more inclined to do it because she feels like she's actually receiving something of value rather than, here's one box with one lip gloss in it. Yeah. It's like, am I going to really bother? Like, it wasn't even worth opening the box for that. And then also just when people are a bit more creative and a bit more interesting than just the product in a box. So, it often comes with flowers or other presents which are nothing to do with the gift itself or things that are related to it. And it tends to be the ones who have actually taken the time to build a bit of a relationship with her rather than just cold sending her stuff. Where she's actually interested in the brand and there's been a bit of dialogue, then she will always do it. As opposed to, like, I think just blind sending stuff to people who haven't shown an interest in your brand is probably not going to be that effective.
Yeah, it makes so much. Yeah, it makes so much sense when you talk about it and when you humanize the influencers and the makeup artist or like these personalities.
And I mean, these people who have got millions of followers. I mean, imagine what it's like. Imagine the amount of stuff they get sent every day.
Yeah, so they must have people just opening the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, or it must be a full-time job for someone to open it. So it's just how do you cut through that noise, right? And how do you get them excited about it? And that's why you got to find influencers that are a good fit for your brand, because just because they work for someone else doesn't mean they're a good fit for your brand. But ideally, when the person that we send something to opens our coffee machine, we make their day. They're like, oh my God, I wanted one of these anyway. I was going to buy one of these anyway, and now I've been sent one. This is amazing. And I'm now going to do a 5-minute video of unboxing it and playing with it and just raving about how great it is off their own back. That's the ideal kind of moment, right? Because all we did was have to send them a machine.
Yeah.
And you get all of this amazing content and you make someone happy as well, right? And you just know that person is going to show every person that comes to their house or their flat for the next year their new coffee machine. And that's way better than, Instagram ads.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of your wife, when we spoke privately, you said you do a lot of childcare while, she's a celebrity makeup artist, so she travels abroad. That I felt it shouldn't be, but was very refreshing coming from a male founder, right? Because you're also very busy. So how do you balance all of this and also, do childcare and split that housework equally?
Yeah, it's a lot. And, and her work is all over the place. So like some weeks she'll, have 3 or 4 days off in a row with nothing to do and she gets to spend loads of time with the kids, which is amazing. And then, I'll cram in loads of stuff. But then other times she always leaves, she very often leaves the house at 5 a.m. to go to some shoot. So that means, it's up to me to get everyone up and get the kids to nursery. Luckily, my younger one has just started going to nursery now. So that makes life a lot easier. And look, it's just a constant, it feels like one big long diary meeting half the time. It's like who's doing what where. Yeah. And look, we're lucky, we have nanny, we have a grandma and all that kind of stuff. And I guess I'm lucky in a way because like if I don't have stuff in my diary, I can, do what I need to do with them in the morning and then go into work a bit later or come home a bit earlier. And, because my job is completely and utterly continuous. Like the day never starts and ends. It just goes on and on and on forever. So you can squeeze stuff in as founders. I think it's really important never to moan or never to complain because I love what I do and I'm super lucky to have the business. And I created all of my own problems. I like to remind myself that, no one gave me this business, right? Like I set out to create it. Yeah. But, can be a lot and it can be all consuming and it can be quite stressful and there are lots of sleepless nights and there's lots of worry. And I think the thing you get back that to me is super valuable is you are in control of your own time. And so that is something that I really, really value about being a CEO, I guess, is having control over my own time. And
But still, you can't ignore the fact that you have a lot of things to juggle, right? I mean, as a female founder, I get asked all the time, how do you balance family and business? Do you ever get asked that as a male founder?
No, do you know
Okay,
what?
I'm going to ask
probably,
you now.
Yeah, probably male founders should get asked that a lot more. I don't think anyone has the answer to this, right? Like, I think the answer to this is that you just do your absolute best, and you probably, and you certainly don't succeed 100% at balance. Like, anyone who says they do, I don't believe. Like, I would like to spend more time on lots of things at work than I have time to do, and I'd like to spend more time on lots of things outside of work than I do. And the idea that you're ever going to achieve 100% success, I think is just a fallacy. So I think it's just about just doing your best to manage it. And the thing that I really struggle with is either doing one thing or the other. So it's like, am I currently at home and not working and doing the other piece of the balance, or am I working now? And I think at the weekends, in the evenings, at night, during the day.
So you're integrating everything. That's how you achieve, I guess, quote unquote balance.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I was supposed to be playing with the kids and I'm responding to Slack messages, and it's that whole thing, right? Or it's the weekend and I'm supposed to be.
Do they know and they ask you not to be on your phone ever?
No, they're too small so far, 1 and 3, but I'm sure it's coming.
Wait another 2 years.
Yeah. I'm sure it's coming. But it's tricky. We try and go away as much as we can, which is less than I'd like, but still, like, for me, it's just, I feel like that resets everything.
Yeah. Do you manage to switch off while you're away?
I've got much better at it, actually. Yeah. And I try and force myself to kind of put my phone in the hotel safe and leave it for 5 hours or something.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
Yeah, and just like leave it for 5 hours.
Do you feel itchy?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But it wears off. You kind of get used to it, and you can get better at it. And actually, you just have to realize that, do you know what? At this point, like, it's not like it used to be in the early days. Like, if I can't go away for a week and not have to do much, then I'm not doing a very good job of running the business.
And they probably enjoy the silence of 5
absolutely.
hours. So what's on your mind now?
We're trying to take our first steps internationally at the moment. So we haven't, I know you guys have got some stores in New York. We haven't done anything permanent yet, but we did something in LA with Soho House for a year. We're looking at some other stuff in New York. We have our US website and having some early stage US grocery conversations. So we're kind of tentatively sticking a toe across the pond, if you like. So we're trying to do that, but obviously in the right way and in a measured way, and not spending too much money on that. And then, really it's about figuring out, how do we build and become bigger and bigger, but while also improving the quality of everything we do. So improving the quality of the brand, improving the quality of the product, quality of all of our communications in all of its forms. And I think we are succeeding in that at the moment, but it gets harder and harder. And some parts of it get easier because you're doing things at a scale. So, our head of coffee just spent a month in Brazil buying coffee.
So you have a head of coffee. That makes sense, but that sounds like a really cool job.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. He's basically a walking coffee tasting machine. As in,
such a cool job.
Yeah, I know it's amazing, right, to think about these jobs that you just don't even know exist. But he's a bit like a sommelier for coffee. So he's actually calibrated to taste and score coffee out of 100. And if you put him in a room with other people with the same qualification, of which there's only about 500 in the world, they will all score random cups of coffee the same out of 100 to within a point or two. So they'll all say, this is a 92, or this is a 94, or this is, which is just incredible, right? To just be able to taste coffee and do that. But, he's really the palate of grind. So I kind of take him everywhere with me where there's anything that remotely involves quality of product. So he's just been there for a month, and we're now buying huge quantities of coffee for ourselves to go into cans, to go into Soho House locations, to go into grocery. So the volume has changed dramatically, and actually with that you're able to have so much more impact. We work with one farm called Jaguara in Brazil, and we started working with them. They had one farm. They now have 7 farms across different parts of Brazil. We buy 80+% of their total crop. And we know them really, really well now. So that's amazing, because you can work together and you can end up buying a better quality product from them.
And you're having a huge impact on the community, I'd imagine.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And as a business, we end up paying less because we're buying so much of it and we're trading with them directly. There's no one in the middle taking a cut. So we're buying at a better price. They're receiving a better price. Quality goes up because we work more and more closely with them about, exactly how they're picking it, how they're storing it, how they're drying it. The second it comes off the tree, you can't make it any better, but you can make it a lot worse if you don't do the right things. Just down to how it's stored and how it's shipped and how it's wrapped. So, from a business, it gets better. For the consumer, it gets better because they get a better product. And then you can have this huge impact on these valleys in Brazil and these towns and villages where, your purchasing is making a huge difference to like the lives of the people there.
Yeah,
and
that's
I
so
think,
inspiring.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
One last question. What's one advice you'd give a young founder?
The exciting thing about 2023 is that it's never been easier to start a business, right? It's never been cheaper or faster to start a business with, an Instagram account and a product or a service of some kind that you can ship out. So, I do get frustrated with, I'm sure you get 20 emails a day of people saying, hey, can you help me? Can you give me some advice? I think people go into planning kind of overdrive sometimes and they just spend way too long on that. And look, the counter argument to this is you should do a really great business plan. You should know all of the numbers. You should research the market. You should do, and look, for sure, you need to do a bit of that. But I see people who have been talking about launching their business for 3 years. And I'm like, what? Like, you could have launched and failed 3 times in these 3 years.
And some people talk about the idea for 3 years, right?
And they just talk about the idea. And look, there have been times where I've been too impulsive and I've been too much just getting on with it and diving in with both feet when maybe I should have been more considered or more measured. And, I think I've got better at that over the years. And I think you do get better at that with experience. But equally, for an early stage founder, you've got nothing to lose. So like, what's the great thing about having nothing to lose? Well, it's having nothing to lose. So just go for it. Like, get on with it, because there's nothing worse for me than talking for 3 years about the idea. And my business has become so different to the business that we started. And it got there by trying stuff and some things working and some things failing, and it evolving and it adapting over time. And you could never have possibly sat at the beginning and mapped this thing out. Like, it's just been a complete story of evolution. So just start. Like, I really think you should just start. And that doesn't, start as cheaply as possible and as quickly as possible and manage the risks as best you can. But ultimately, there is always going to be some risk, and just get on with it, because you'll learn so much more through doing than you will through sitting there and thinking about it.
Yeah, I love that. Just do it. Just get on with it.
Yeah, like asterisks, like be sensible, plan a little bit, don't do anything crazy, don't spend too much money in the first week, etc. A measured approach to just do it, I think, yeah.
But measure for a short period of time.
Just not too much, because you cannot predict the future and you cannot work out exactly how this thing is going to go until you try and get some customers, and then listen to your customers and do most of the things, or at least some of the things